You all have a copy of the minutes of the last meeting. Does everybody agree that our sign was correct?
Agree.
Just before you agree, Chairman, if I may. I've been advised of a correction that's needed in that Councillor Frenchman gives apologies at the 30th of July meeting. And Councillor Perry did disclose an interest during debate on an appeals cost item which we can add into the narrative of the minutes. Those changes if you're happy.
Also, Chairman, Councillor Eden, you were noticed giving apologies for planning committee on the 2nd of September when actually you were in attendance there.
Agreed again.
Do we have any apologies for absence?
Apologies received, Chairman, from Councillors John Yamas and Sean Connors, and Councillor John Shepherd might be late. He's not really in attendance.
And two more apologies I'm aware of, Madam Chairman, from Councillor Gwyn Aldridge and also David Smith.
I have apologies from Daventry.
No, thank you very much. Declaration of members' interests. Councillor Warren.
I have a disclosable interest in the recommendations in the Housing and Environmental Health reference item SG 51502. I will leave the chamber when that item comes up.
Thank you.
Actually, I have the same sort of interest.
All right, thank you. Councillor Perry.
Yes, I've got an interest in the same item as just been mentioned, but I'd also declare an interest in the planning application minutes for the DA 2015-0241 as a board director of the company which submitted the application.
Chairman, can I just ask you a question? I hope it's an order if I go and see Brian Lomax, who is, I understand, not at all well. I thought it just right to bring that to your attention.
I think perhaps you ought to contact Catherine first and just make sure that I'm sure it I'm sorry. She's in front of her.
Oh, sorry.
Forgot you were here. That's temporary. Can I ask you to talk to Catherine later about that?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
Right, Chairman's announcements. You have had the list out, but I just wondered whether I could take a minute to just talk just slightly about one that I went to. I was very lucky to be asked to attend the presentation ceremony of the Ushaka medal by the Russian government to the veterans of the Arctic convoys. And it was held in the Guildhall. There was about 10 there from Northamptonshire. One or two couldn't make it. In fact, one gentleman who couldn't make it actually lives in Woodford. He had a hospital appointment on that day, so they were planning on presenting him his medal at a later date. There was somebody from a Russian envoy from London came down and presented them all with a medal and a book. and all to do with the Arctic convoys, etc. And it made me feel very humble to stand there and watch them stand up, apart from one gentleman who couldn't, and just receive their medals after all this time. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Long overdue.
But that's the only one I want to say. Yes, it was long overdue, very long. Right. Questions under Council Procedure Rules and Act Numbers 10 and 11. Do we have any more questions from members of the public?
We have no questions from members of the public received before the deadline.
And questions from members of the council? I believe. Councillor Abigail Campbell, would you like to speak first?
Okay, my first question is for Councillor Warren. What will be the impact of this government's likely extension of right-to-buy housing associations on the provision of social homes in our district? And what actions is this council taking to ensure that this government's housing policy does not penalise low-income families in our district? Thank you. Would you like me to read both questions?
Can we take them at a time? Councillor Warren?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Campbell, for your question. The first part of your question relates to the registered providers of affordable housing working in Daventry are currently considering the likely impact of the government's proposals. They have not yet provided a numerical assessment, and in practice this may well take some time fully to understand exactly how many properties will be sold under the extended right to buy. The second part of your question, Council continues to pursue the delivery of all forms of affordable housing for people in the district, and to use both conventional and innovative ways of achieving this. For example, we conduct surveys of housing need to support appropriate delivery and rural extension schemes. Also on the papers tonight, in tonight's meeting, is a proposed agreement with the Futures Housing Group, which should deliver at least 150 affordable homes for the district over the next 10 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Second question?
Thank you. The second question is directed to Councillor Miller. This council has previously rejected made motions proposing the council pays its lowest paid employees a living wage on cost grounds. You commented, we would all like to support our lower paid staff and we'd all like to give them more money. The question is, where would this money come from without leading to job losses? So what impact will this government's introduction of a living wage or a higher national minimum wage in April 2016 have on the council? Thank you.
I believe Councillor Griffin to answer this question.
Thank you, Chair. The medium-term financial plan includes an increase of 2% on the pay bill for indicative purposes. Applying this percentage will increase the top of Band 1 to 7.12p an hour. 9 employees are paid at this rate, and the cost of raising their pay to meet the national living wage would be £473. Employers' national insurance and pension contributions are related to actual pay, so an increase in base pay would also entail an increase in employers' national insurance and pension contributions, irrespective of any other increases in the national insurance or pension contributions. Applying this indicative increase would put the top rate of Band 2 at 7.72. If the tops of Band 1 is increased to 7.20 an hour to meet the national living wage, the differential between the bands would be reduced, but there would still be a difference so that the national living wage could be implemented with minimal impact. I would also refer members to a strategy group on the 4th of July 2013, when the living wage at that stage had a full report on the impact at that time, and you might find that helpful if you want to look back at it. Also, the pay policy statement, which I think you can get on DAFNet, and that might give you sort of an overall look on how things have changed. In the meantime, I think the resources portfolio holder has been doing research on this quite recently, and I believe you might like to add something to the future implications over the course of the next 2 years after this, if that's okay with you, Chairman.
Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chairman. To speak on this particular subject, yes. As Councillor Griffin has said, whilst taking a look at the medium-term financial plan and everything that we are looking to budget, the items laid out in the question by Councillor Campbell are being looked at. We will take the items into consideration and we will consider them in review of everything that this council can and can't afford.
thank you. Next question is from Councillor Randall.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is to Councillor Miller. Who will make the decision on how we tender the environmental services contract, and will it be the council that make that decision? The current contract, which is being delivered by Enterprise or AME, but there has been talks that may be split into separate contracts. Will there be an opportunity for a cross-party working group to be involved in this process?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Randall for that question, or 3 questions, as it may be in one. It's funny actually, because it's the same meeting I'm going to refer to, which Councillor Griffin referred to, on the Strategy Group meeting on the 4th of July 2013, where the Council, following that Strategy Group, Council then approved the direction of travel for the future provision of environmental services following consideration of the issue of that meeting. This does suggest adopting a number of smaller contracts and also potentially for some activities to be involved parish councils or community groups. However, all options will be considered, and this will be led by our portfolio holder, Councillor Joe Guilford, from the member point of view, and it's to ensure that value for money is achieved in delivering the outcomes we're looking for. Final decisions will be made by Council, Councillor Randall, on future service choices. Contributions from all members, including yourself, are always welcome, and if you have any particular suggestions, we'd be very pleased to hear them, not now, but at the appropriate point, or in writing, through email. And that's always welcome, and any other members have suggestions, please forward them through to Joe Guilford. That'd be really helpful. And I anticipate the need for some wider member engagement, so I set that point, although it may not necessarily be, it might be by workshops rather than a working group. And these have worked well in the past in different areas. So a formal working group we don't think is necessary, but we will make sure that all members do have a chance to engage and have their input taken into account. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Item 7 is reports of committees. Just for information. Item 8, recommendations of committees. Do you agree to take the reports of committees on board?
Agreed.
Excuse me, Chairman. Could I ask if you could speak up, please? Sorry. If you could speak up. You really have a very lovely soft voice and it's not travelling very well, I'm afraid. Thank you, Chairman.
And I would try. I need half of its nerves. Right, first item is P79/15, the adoption of local requirements for the validation of planning applications. And I think that's Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Chairman. Very simple, a very obvious thing. No need to go through it. I ask the Council to resolve the recommendation, Chairman. And I propose that.
Do we have a second? Councillor Paul.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm happy to second that. No further comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are members in agreement with this?
Agreed.
Anybody against? Thank you. Next item is SG49/15/01, the Overtoft Village Design Statement. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The village design statement does still have a place in our development plan. as a supplementary planning document. Some of them have been being developed over a very long period, and that includes this one. But the Yaltop Village Design Statement was handed over to the council some time ago for a formal period of consultation, and there was some feedback during that consultation. So the first recommendation is that the proposed changes to the Yaltop Village Design Statement in response to representation as set out in Appendix A of the report be approved. And secondly, that further minor editorial changes be made to Yaltop Village Design Statement to reflect the fact that the document will be in its final adopted form. As a result of that, I'm recommending that the revised Village Design Statement for Yaltop be adopted as a supplementary planning document of this council.
Do you have a second for that? Are members in agreement with that?
Agreed.
Anybody against? SG 49/15/03, local development scheme for Daventry district. Councillor Sharper again.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The local development plans for this district are still under construction, as it were, although we will all still be celebrating the fact that we did manage to adopt the West Northamptonshire Joint Course Strategy following the Joint Strategic Planning Committee's decision to adopt it in December 2014. So we do now have an up-to-date plan in place, as is required by the National Planning Policy Framework. But in order to fulfil the aspirations within the plan, we need to set out a scheme for what we do to achieve that. In particular, the local development plan, the core strategy, part 1 of our plan, talks about a hierarchy of settlements other than the town of Daventry, but doesn't actually create that hierarchy. So that's something that has to be done as a Part 2 plan, and in fact the first part of the Part 2 plan, Part 2A, is the proposed settlements and countryside local plan. Work on that is carrying on now. The safe policies in our local plan, some of them from 1997, although we know that they're still recognised as up-to-date policies, and we have a letter from the Secretary of State for local government to endorse that view, they are increasingly becoming out of date, so it's necessary to bring things up to date. The pressure for development in rural areas, for example, resulted in a requirement being identified in the core strategy of 2,360 dwellings outside of the growing town of Daventry. We've already exceeded that total, and we've still got 14 years of the plan to go. So you can see that we do need to get a grip on matters. A further key local plan which we need to produce is the Gypsy Traveller and Travelling Show People local plan, which will be known as Local Plan Part 2B for Daventry District. The Joint Core Strategy establishes a need, but doesn't establish how those needs should be met. And in particular, we need to collect new evidence and make appropriate site allocations. So there's quite a lot of work to be done still as regards our local plan. And for that work to happen, we need to put in place a project scheme, if you like, which lays out what's to be done and a timescale for it. And that is the point of this document, which is before you tonight, the local development scheme. At a recent meeting, the Joint Strategic Planning Committee made a decision that each of the partner planning authorities should produce their own local development scheme for their own bits of the Part 2 plan. So this is entirely in accord with that. So So in order to prepare the plans, we need an up-to-date local development scheme in place, and this will specify what documents need to be prepared and the order in which they will be prepared and the areas that they cover and things of that nature. It must be prepared under the auspices of the National Planning Policy Framework, which means, for example, that there must be an obvious objective contributing to the achievement of sustainable development. And we also need to prepare our plans in accordance with a duty to cooperate with neighbouring authorities. So all of this has to be built into the detail which is in the local development scheme itself. And hence, before we can start that or have that work recognised, the council needs to agree to adopt the local development scheme so that it is the overarching document for this particular lot of work. There are a number of points highlighted in the report, which I won't bore you with now, but although we've achieved a lot by getting our core strategy adopted, there's still a lot to do, and there's a lot going on in order to achieve all of that. It's particularly satisfying to me as a neighbourhood planning champion to be able to note that we have 21 communities now who are in the process of preparing a neighbourhood development plan. And one of those has actually been examined, but I don't think we've had the report yet from that examination. I'm getting agreement from the back of the room, which is helpful. Thank you. So, local planning development has to be based on evidence. The evidence takes work to produce, and hence we set out a timescale which shows that by the end of a 3-year period we should have prepared and approved and adopted these Part 2 local development plans. They, of course, do have to be subject to a certain amount of consultation and also examination. The Secretary of State takes charge of the plans, and then they are examined and adopted by this Council at such time that they are shown to be sound. I think that's the right word we still use. So, to enable the production of 2 plans, it's proposed that a local development scheme setting up the timetable for the production of each plan be approved, and it's to ensure that there's appropriate member input into the respective plans. This will be dear to everybody's heart. It's proposed that membership of the established membership steering group be reconstituted to give the process appropriate direction. So the 3 recommendations for adoption tonight are that the proposed local development scheme be approved to take effect from 1st of October 2015, that Council is being asked to extend the purpose of the existing steering group to include the Gypsy Traveller and Travelling Show People Local Plan, Part 2B, and the Housing Supplementary Planning Document. And third recommendation, that Council be asked to nominate members for the steering group, if possible including the leader or deputy leader, the strategic planning portfolio holder, the housing and environmental health portfolio holder, the chair of the planning committee, and 3 other members reflecting the geographical distribution and settlement size of the district. So that's what I'm asking for Council approval.
Councillor Miller.
We need a second.
Sorry, can I have a second for this, please?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'm happy to second this because, in a nutshell, it means that we are literally in control of our own destiny, and I think that is the important part. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Miller, can I ask you to speak on the third part?
The third part, yes, sorry, yes. So I hope Councillor Paul's right about charge of our own destiny. Is this about, well, obviously, I was going to, as leader, put myself forward. Councillor Charlton is the strategic planning portfolio holder, and Councillor Mike Warren's the housing and environmental health portfolio holder, and obviously Councillor Osborne's the chair of the planning committee. We have 3 names likely to put forward for the other 3 places, who are Councillor Frenchman, Councillor Auger, and Councillor Ball. But I haven't heard anything from the opposition if they want to put a name forward, so I'll leave it to that moment there, Chairman.
May I suggest? I thought I made my interest in joining it as a strategy group quite clearly, but I'm happy to put that in writing and I'm aware.
Chairman, I also expressed an interest in joining this group, which I did belong to before. Thank you.
Right. Well, is it possible, Madam Chairman, that those three names can we agree that we're going to have three names and we can do that outside this meeting? Is that possible?
Probably appropriate.
If it's appropriate, yes. Okay, thank you.
It doesn't say the recommendation, it says a council nominate now, it's not council be asked. So I think we've satisfied the recommended point without causing any delay.
Can I ask then that council accepts these three recommendations? SG 50/15/01, Public Space Protection Order, Enhanced Dog Control Towers. Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Chair. Following the consultation, which ran from the 1st of June through to the 1st of August, we had 834 responses, which was a fantastic response for any consultation. Notably that 65% of the responders said that they were dog owners. Most suggestions were really well supported by both dog walkers and non-walkers. Subject to council's approval, the Public Space Protection Order will commence on December the 1st and last for 3 years. If council agreed this proposal, officers will initially focus on promotion and education, and the main aim being to raise awareness and education to the public, with a view to full implementation of the new dog control elements of it from January 2016. Therefore, can I ask that it be recommended that, having regard to the conditions within Section 59 of the Anti-Social Behaviour Crime and Policing Act of 2014, the Public Spaces Protection Order, Appendix A of this report, is made that will provide new and enhanced powers to tackle dog fouling and other forms of irresponsible dog ownership. Specifically, the new PSPO will see the continuation of 3 existing dog orders. One which is fines for people who do not clean up after their dogs. 2, excluding dogs from specified fenced-off public play areas. And 3, direction to put a dog on a lead. And introduce 2 new ones: dogs on a lead in one small specific area, which is near the cafeteria at Daventry Country Park. And finally, fines for people who do not have the means to clean up after their dogs. And a fixed penalty notice fine will be increased from £75 to £100. And ask for council's approval.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In seconding this proposal, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. We are a nation of dog lovers, no doubt about that. But responsible dog owners need to have no fear of these powers. Dog fouling is a major concern, and it's a concern of many of our residents. A couple of things that I'm very pleased about is that common sense, I think, has prevailed. So I'm pleased to see that in the country park, dogs will only be on leads in certain areas. I think that's a good step. And that also there will be a lead-in period of 3 months, during which an educational approach will be adopted. The public has raised the concerns, the council has listened, the council has taken notice. So I would ask this chamber to show their support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Frenchman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a dog owner, but I fully support these recommendations. However, just one query on number 1 of the recommendations. I feel that it would be better, or it would be useful if that could be clarified to some extent, because some people do clean up after their dogs but then they leave little packages hanging around on trees and gates and other places, which I suppose technically is clearing up, but then dumping it somewhere else. So I would actually like to see people accused of doing that also brought into the scope of this policy. Thank you.
Councillor Daventry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Frenchman has just said what I wanted to say. You do get, nowadays, you can get biodegradable poo bags, as they're called. But, you know, they are more expensive than the normal ones. And like in the countryside, and I know that in West Haddon they had a problem where people were just hanging them on trees. And, you know, what are we supposed to do with them? Somebody's got to come along and always clean them up, put them somewhere. And also, the other thing about it is we do have poo bins around the areas, and people moan and say that when they're full, and we have heard that a gentleman has been taken over because he was poorly or whatever, and this gentleman didn't know where all the poo bins were. But can we educate people along with it all that you don't just have to put it in poo bins, they can go in normal bins too. So if there's a bin there and it's a poo bin and it's full, I don't think there's any need for people to put it by the side or put it on top or hang it on a hedge or a tree. Either take it home and put it in your bin or put it in the other bins that are around your area. They all go to the same place at the end of the day. I think that's the education that needs to be done, and it actually makes me laugh. This is a big, we all know this is a big thing, it always has been, about cleaning up after dogs, but I can't believe, and I know it sounds silly, that we're giving people 3 months education. You think people, I just don't get it. I'm a dog owner. Do we really need educating? And if you are a dog owner, you should already know. You should already be cleaning up after them in the first place. I think it's such a, it really is an important issue, but I do think it's laughable that we have to educate people to already do this. But there you go. Thank you.
Councillor
Obviously, we have got existing fines already, existing powers already, but as we heard at strategy over the last 3 years, there's been less than 10 fines that have been carried out, because obviously it's difficult to find these people in action. When I've been out talking to people, actually the majority of people have said they would rather people. The biggest thing is, like Councillor Osborne said, is people putting it in the bags and then flinging the bags. Most people have said they'd rather than not bother and just flick it out of the way. Yeah. But my biggest concern is that I still do not feel that number 5 is going to be enforceable, because we've already heard, and it says in the report, that the dog warden is already carrying out 20 hours of targeted enforcement in areas where there is a problem. So out of those 20 hours, over the last 3 years, they've still caught under less than 10 people. And I still am not happy with the fact that somebody may have picked up after their dog, always pick after their dog. They've run out of poo bags and they risk being fined. So, and again, the person who is not going to pick up after their dog can carry the means to pick up and never have any intention. And everybody out there, and I think that you'll find that everybody who is out there spraying the poo, nobody ever comes across anybody and sees them not picking up. Generally, when you're out and about, you do see people pick up. And the biggest problem is often it's people in the night time as well when they let their dog off. And then they don't pick up or they just run ahead. So, I just feel that actually number 5 is not going to be enforceable. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A lot of people in our ward actually have also contacted me during the consultation period, as an insurable members in particular, and noted that
Dogs obviously wishing for them to be off the lead in most of the country parts. I think this is sensible and something that wrote to us. And again, fully utilise the country park for what it's really intended, that exercise. I also agree with other speakers, particularly the phenomenon of the ornaments in the trees. And I think that this message, does actually send a message that we will get more serious on this. And hopefully that is the case, particularly Councillor Warren's team. And really, I think, there are some challenges of enforcement. And I very much welcome seeing how this progresses over the coming months. But it really sends out a message that we won't tolerate this misbehaviour from the people in this community. And really, it's all ultimately about the residents being responsible and responsible dog owners. So I fully support it. Thank you,
And Councillor Evans-Swift?
Yes, thank you. As you know, I represent a rural ward, and because of the change of law, we had the dog bin, and now dog bag can be put in any kind of bin. So I think, and a lot of people are not aware of that. So could we do a drive to make people aware that they can put the dog bin, the dog bag, in their normal bin, in their grey bin? Because before it was illegal, it was not allowed. But now you can put it in any bin, and that is allowed. So you don't need to have a dog bin to put your bag in a dog bin. Thank you.
Councillor Griffin.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I can tell you that our dog warden is most responsible and comes when she's called upon, does a really good job. But not only that, she happens to be a reasonable person. And this council does try always to be reasonable. And if they meet a miscreant, particularly in this neck of the woods, she does work with them. And there may not have been a lot of people directly fined, but there's been a lot of people who have been reasoned and cautioned, and time has been taken to point out the errors of their ways. And as for hanging poo bags on poo trees, I really do feel that it's antisocial. It's antisocial behaviour, and how about a few asbos to go on this with it?
I agree with that we know how to eradicate this problem totally, but we can minimise it. And the evidence seems to be coming through now that we are beginning to reduce the amount of dog foul, perhaps combined with other initiatives as well, such as spray and bricks from experience that. But I noticed myself going through Newham in particular, where frequently Newham dog owners take their dogs for walks up the road to Preston Gates, where there are nice wide villages, and they can just let them off to lose. And they look, and I slow down, they look very intimidating now. They're aware of that they will be prosecuted if they allow dog fowl to continue. As for the hanging the poo bags on the trees, surely that's a mutual effect. So if we can't find them £100 for dog fowl, then we can probably pick up, I think that's £80 for littering, replaced with a plastic bag. So there is a remedy for that. But I do think this is a good step forward and long overdue. And let's hope that we can eradicate it. I doubt it, but we will certainly minimize it.
Councillor Evans-Swift.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I too support the overall move. I think there are other things that we have done and can continue to do. It's important that bins are available, whatever kind of bins they are, in the right places. When the man in the village shop in Yomosov wanted to sell ice cream, he had a bin outside the shop, so you came out of the shop holding your ice lolly and took the wrapper off and put it in the bin. You walked up the road licking it, and when you finished, you threw the stick away. So I watched where this happened, and we put a bin at a sort of median distance that people walk licking their lolly. So there was a bin when they got there. You could do similar things by observing the behaviour of dogs. We did this in Yelverton. They all go up the bridle path towards Crick. And some of us think that's a good idea, get as near to Trig as possible. Others think, no, don't do that. What you should be doing is noticing where they go. If they've got a small dog, it doesn't get very far. So there's a bin. A bit further on, there's a bin for the people who medium-sized dogs. You think it's funny, but it's actually quite important. And in addition to that, we put notices up everywhere that says there's no such thing as a dog poop fairy.
Thank you. Councillor Nankar.
Thank you, Chair. I also have two concerns with item 5. My main concern really is children. I mean, I often see a lot of children walking the dogs, they've had the animals for Christmas, birthdays and the like. And I'm led to believe that the onus will fall on the parents of those children. So whether they give the children the poo bags or whatever you call them, if the children are not inclined to use them, I'm led to believe that it falls back on the parents, which concerns me a little. And there's no age, is it under 18, under 16? When does somebody become liable for the penalty themselves? And the other concern is, it already been mentioned again on item 5, is I've actually spoken to somebody who's studying law, and they have never heard before anybody being fined before the crime has been committed. So, to find somebody before the dog has done the poop seems a bit misplaced. How do you know the dog will foul anyway before it returns home? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I have 3 speakers that want to come back, but after that I think we better wind this up. First of all, Councillor Vandra.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I would prefer it actually to be a district-wide number 5, not just the country park, because it sends out a message that, we can't do it in the country park, but the rest of the district. And as we heard last time, places like Borough Hill, it's everywhere. Well, across this recommendation, we were talking about the country park.
It's only for 4, I think.
Only for dogs on
And it
wheels.
doesn't actually, it doesn't set it out.
Cafe, Daventry, Country Park, and
I'm looking at it on here.
I just want to make a quick point about what Councillor Carr just said. If parents don't teach their children, when they take out their dogs, not to take poo bags and clear up after their own dogs, then I'm really sorry, it's a sad, sad world.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to come back. There are concerns, but to me, you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start to move it. I believe this is the right way forward. I know that we will look at it, we will monitor it, and later on there may be changes made. So, in spite of your concerns, I still think this is a way forward. I'd just like to highlight something. This hasn't just arisen. This has been a problem over many, many years. I go back in my dim and distant past when I actually owned a poodle parlour. I had a poodle, and I also owned a pet shop. And I lived in Rayleigh in Essex. Now, Rayleigh Council were having problems, such as we're having. They came to me and said, can you help us with our campaign to advertise the problem? And they did, and it didn't really make too much difference until they said, what we will do, there wasn't fine mentioned, but we will name and shame. Now, I think we're talking about fines, and I don't think there's any problem in when a person is fined, naming and shaming at the same time, so it gets highlighted. So this is a start. Let's make a start, and then let's see where we go from there. People have got concerns, understand that, but you've got to start somewhere, and I believe this is the way to start.
Councillor Ward, do you want to come back?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. If I could just cover the tree decorations, which Councillor Frenchman has, and Councillor Osborne has brought up, and many other members. It's actually, you're moving away to a criminal offence, littering. It's not a bylaw, it's actually a criminal offence. And the maximum fine for that is £2,500, and I believe there's a fixed penalty of £75. So if anybody sees this, I urge you to report it, because it's outside of what we're actually trying to do. It becomes a criminal offence. It becomes littering. As far as the notification on the bins, it's planned to put notices on all the litter bins now that, you know, poo bags can be put in. So that is, you know, in planning. As far as the bags, you're not being having what can I say? You're not being having an offence against before it's committed. You haven't been asked to carry bags. That's where the offence is. It's not the dog pooing. It's not carrying. It's carrying the not sufficient bags. Okay.
Right, thank you. Right, in that case, can I ask members if they agree to the 5 recommendations?
Yeah, can I just note that I don't agree with number 5?
One objection. Anybody else?
Just to number 5, not to the others, just to number 5.
Thank you. Next item, SG 50-15-02, working arrangements for the Futures Housing Group. Councillor Stephen.
Getting out to a word yet, Chairman. Back on now. Yes, you will see following the proposal from Futures Housing Group, which is the main group that run DDH. They want some different sort of working relationships, if you like, with the District Council. This will be a benefit to the people on the housing waiting list, and hopefully provision of more affordable housing, and it'll be tied up even better. So that's number 1. Recommendation 2, that this council nominates a member, and I have a name to put forward, Chairman, which is the portfolio holder, Councillor Warren. And item 3 is very good. Strategy Group will have a chance to question the progress throughout the year of what is happening, which I think is fine. So the whole council can have a go if it wants, comes along to the strategy group and asks questions. So those 3 recommendations with the name Councillor Warren for number 2 is the proposition to resolve, Chairman, and I'll make that proposition.
Thank you. Do I have a second for that? Councillor Gill.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm more than happy to second it. However, one thing that I would ask, that the council be minded, I would have liked it as an amendment, but that is not possible at this juncture. But the council using whatever means possible to call on Futures Housing Group to adopt a new name for Daventry District Housing, to give it a new identity following their changes, their restructuring, etc. I minded also at the time that Amber Valley moved away from Amber Valley Housing to Futures, which is now the group name. I see more and more Futures vehicles running around in and around Daventry. There is an amount of confusion in the urban areas, not so much in the rural areas, but I feel that it would be an excellent move in their restructuring for DDH to change their name. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
On item 2, I did ask at strategy, how this person would be selected, and I would have like to have seen an email go out to all members, to ask if they would have liked to have put their name forward, and to come back with, rather than just somebody.
I'd like to come back on both points on there. Actually, I start with Councillor Randall. We had a number of people interested, and I know that I know Abigail was, we've got members on the board already. The point was we really want a strategic member on there in terms of the portfolio holder, but obviously members can apply as independent members of that committee. So I think I would urge, obviously, if Abigail on your side wants to apply to the DDH, she may well have done already actually, then I think that's the way that works. I can't speak for the DDH how many people got on the Insight Committee, but from our point of view, we felt it was important for the most strategic portfolio holder to be on that Insight Committee, and that's why we put Councillor Wallace's name forward. On Councillor Paul's point, I'm more than happy to write a letter to DDH with that suggestion if members generally agree to that proposal about the name change. Just to put to DDH, it's clearly their decision, not ours, just on that basis, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Just like to thank the leader for that comment, Madam.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wonder if the portfolio holder can remind me on item, lost it, there we are, on item 1 of recommendations. I was at a strategy group, but I'm afraid I don't recall how that particular recommendation was going to contribute to a high number of affordable houses being built. Would it be good explained? Thank you.
Chairman, this will be the first time ever, because I'm not the housing portfolio holder, I'm the planning one. This will be the first time ever I'm going to refer to an officer, and I've never done that in 30 years. But I was at strategy group as well, and I saw benefits that more affordable housing we have the nomination rights and things like that, but I'll refer to an officer if I may, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, the portfolio holder can't forget about himself, so I'll do so. There are two aspects to this, both set out on page 142 of the strategy papers, if members refer to it later. One is that the Futures Housing Group has agreed to provide 150 additional new affordable homes over the next 10 years. Now, by additional, that means houses that will not be provided via Section 106 agreements are very important in negotiations because of the benefit, to the benefit of the council in simply having Futures provide houses that otherwise Bromford or one of the other providers would have provided. So these would be additional to what would otherwise get through the system. 150 houses over 10 years, 15 a year, is a material proportion of the target affordable housing delivery of the core strategy. So it's a number well worth having. The other aspect, which has been alluded to by Councillor Oswald, is the nomination rights. What we secure through this agreement is the right to nominate to either 100 or 90% in other different circumstances of all the stock owned by Futures Housing Group companies in the district in perpetuity, which is a significantly higher proportion than the 75% of this transferred stock that we have at the moment. So the council will be in a much better position to have access to the affordable housing stock in the district and will have more of it as well. Thank you.
In that case, can I ask you to agree to the 3 recommendations, including the member to be nominated as Councillor Waller? Agree. Right, ladies and gentlemen, The next item is SG 511501, Complaints Procedure and Process Review. Councillor Reinhardt.
Thank you, Chair. I would again like to congratulate the SNI group, especially the tax panel, for the effort and hard work they put into this paper. The SNI group have conducted a review of the Council's complaints and process procedures, which was put forward to the strategy group on the 10th of September, where it was agreed to put forward to full Council for the season. The two recommendations are that employees are trained on the revised customer feedback and complaints procedure to improve the recording and follow-up of feedback and complaints to ensure each has been accurately included. Second one, that members are made aware of Stage 2 complaints in their wards and portfolio holders Stage 2 complaints in their area of responsibility. These recommendations have been addressed in the project implementation plan for the new customer feedback and complaints procedure of 2015. It is therefore recommended that the SNI recommendations are agreed by full council this evening.
Thank you. Do we have a second for that? Councillor Morgan, would you like to speak as well?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Very quick on from me. Yeah, I'd like to second this. Thank Councillor Hurd. Thank Councillor Patchett for doing this piece of work, initiating it, kicked it off. Took quite a bit of effort. Came to us a couple of times for a lot of discussion, and finally came through Councillor Randall. But the second point is really the most interesting, I think, and that is really to make sure that councillors are involved, particularly when it gets to stage 2, so they can't be wrong-footed, as it were, also aware of the issue of complainants. And obviously, in terms of the spirit of continuous improvement, having the portfolio holders aware of those complaints and able to take that on board will certainly improve our performance as well, which of course was the original objective as group when we looked at it. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. Just on item 1, I just wondered if there's going to be a time scale on that at all. Thank you, Chairman.
I'm sorry, Tony, could you step in on that? I'm not aware.
Yes, Chairman, if perhaps I can help here. The training has already been rolled out, and 71% have already completed the training by the time of the strategy report, and the training is likely to be completed very shortly.
Councillor Charter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's worth noting that of the 12 complaints this year that went through to the Ombudsman, only 2 were upheld, one of which was simply a letter of apology, and I think that congratulates our officers. Many thanks, Madam.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was interested in the second recommendation that members are made aware of stage 2 complaints in their wards. Is that always appropriate? What if the complaint is about the member?
But you're aware of it.
Well, not necessarily. That's monitoring of that.
Depends what type of complaint it is, but if they're under the code of conduct, then you will be notified.
Can I ask members if they agree to those 2 recommendations?
Agree.
SG 52/15/01, 2016-17 capital and revenue budgets and medium-term financial. Councillor Long.
Thank you, Chairman. This report sets out to identify the criteria which will be considered when establishing the 2016-17 capital and revenue budget and medium-term financial plan. Members may regard this document as scene setting. Until 2008, when the world experienced severe financial turmoil, this council received a significant amount of revenue income from interest earned on invested monies. Because of this financial correction, when amongst other things interest rates fell from approximately 6% to 0.5%, DDC had to review its funding to address the changed circumstances. A new strategy was developed for the council to become self-sustaining through council tax and business rates, thus easing most concerns about the long-term position of the authority and provide certainty when planning for the future services. As members would expect, the strategy, being of a long-term nature, does from time to time require minor amendments to address changing circumstances, but does not require any major course correction. Whilst the report is in general self-explanatory, I'll identify a number of items which members may wish to pay particular attention. The medium-term financial plan. Medium-term financial plan for the period 2014 to 2020 was updated and approved by Council at its meeting on the 30th of July 2015. I would like to make it clear that whilst the figures are favourable, members should be cautious in that there is a high reliance on new homes bonus and non-domestic rates, both of which are subject to change on the basis of government policy. Settlement funding. The MTFP approved in February 2015 reflected the settlement funding for 2015-16 that produced a grant reduction of 15.6% and an assumed settlement funding of settlement funding CAD in cash terms of 10% thereafter for the duration of the MTFP. This 10% cut reduces the revenue support grant, RSG, element of settlement funding to approximately £100,000 by 2019-20. This is in line with our strategy. The MTFP will be extended to cover the current financial year, plus a further 5 years, i.e. 2015-16 to 2020-21. It is proposed to remove any remaining element of the RSG in 2020 and 21. Annual council tax increases. In 2015-16, this council increased the council tax by 1.99%. The MTFP also included annual increases of 2% for the following 4 years. 2% being an indicative figure that would be amended to comply with any new referendum levels set by central government. On existing policies, our revenues and support grant, the main support for funding from government, is projected to fall by more than 80% by 2020. By increasing the council tax in 2015-16, this council acknowledged that becoming sustaining through council tax and business rates, as previously stated, would help ease some concerns about the long-term position of the authority. Excuse me. It would also enable the council to maintain control over our own ability to fund investments and provide the certainty required should we need to borrow in the future. Replacing the loss of the revenue support grant was tentatively expected by 2020 would require an increase in council tax of around about 14% by that date, a little more than 2% per annum. I'd like to draw attention to one further item, which is the election team restructure. Individual election registration, IER, has meant a radical change to the electoral registration process. Its statutory basis comes from the Electoral and Administration Act 2013. The process is time-consuming and can involve several contacts with each elector. Postal voting has also grown. Out of an electorate of 60,000 residents, Daventry has over 10,000 registered for a postal vote. This requires additional administrative work. In the light of the foregoing, the current structure of the elections team has been reviewed in order to provide a fit-for-purpose service which can respond to the increasingly busy election timetable over the next 5 years and incorporate the increased demand that IER brings. The proposed changes, coupled with the associated increase in costs for supplies and services to accommodate IER, results in a growth bid of £5,388 for 2015-16 and a full year effect for the 2016-17 of £81,552. Due to the variable nature of elections activity from year to year, underspends from low activity years will be allocated to an elections reserve to meet higher costs in high activity years. I'd like to make a final comment on this topic, in as much that it should be noted that the additional costs for IER are an estimated cost due to the newness of the scheme. As historical data is built up, it may be necessary to revise future budgets. Therefore, in conclusion, with this report and my additional comments now before you, I would ask members to agree the following recommendations. 1. That the 2016-17 budget planning financial strategy be approved. That the restricted growth bid criteria for 2016-17 budget setting be approved. That the assumptions and proposals concerning the financial strategy and development of the 2016-17 budget preparation process be approved. That the revised budget projections incorporated into the medium-term financial plan be approved. And finally, that the growth bid for the elections team restructure also be approved. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Would you like to speak on it?
No. Just agreed.
I was having to second by four councillors. I think it's important to note, Madam Chair, we're a very small council in one way, but we do an awful lot in another way. And our average district council tax precept is some 19% below the national average for district councils. And I think that's something we should be proud of and something we want to maintain. And I know the resource portfolio holder we're very keen to maintain it as well. I think that's a great credit to all the staff of this council, who I believe do an excellent job, and I obviously see it on a day-to-day basis. And it's something we should never take for granted, because I know the challenges are still out there, and we've got many challenges ahead of us in the next 2 or 3 years. I know that members of this council are very committed to maintaining a low council tax precept, but at the same time maximising service delivery and all the other benefits we're trying to install in the long term for this community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I had a question in relation to recommendation 5, the great bid for the elections team restructure. Obviously, as Councillor Long's just made clear, that's a lot about the impact of IER. And I just wondered if it would be appropriate to ask for a progress report on how IER is impacting on our electoral roll. I know canvassers are very busy out at the moment trying to encourage people to join it, but if we could get a sense of how that's going and the difference between the system now and as it was. Because I'm concerned that people don't fall off the roll. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I ask everybody, please, to make the response on that one?
Thank you, Chairman. As Councillor Campbell has mentioned, we are busy with the canvass at the moment. It's still fairly early days in the door knocking process. We are picking up quite a number of people who haven't filled in either the initial form or the reminder. So the canvassers are going out to the properties that haven't responded to requests. So we're working through that. We're meeting with a mixed response as we normally do. A lot of people are quite happy to sign up there and then as an oversight. But we are getting some people who just don't want to engage at the moment. So, but generally it's going quite well.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to make a comment and maybe Tony can come back through Chairman. I had a couple of complaints and also it happened to myself. Wasn't very well. The letter came through and I was trying to text it and you get your number on it and it wouldn't accept it through. So I did it again. Wouldn't go through, and I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll ring next time and I'll bring it up. I'll let someone know. And then I wasn't very well, and for once I had a lie-in because I wasn't very well, and my husband was down in the garage, which is where I would normally be, obviously, working on the cars, and the door went. So it was just after midday on a Sunday. I'd been up all night in pain, and obviously they didn't know that, but the door went And I thought, you know what, I'm in bed, I'm going to ignore it, it's Sunday. So dog started barking, and then it happened, then it went again. Well, after the third knock, I thought, oh, right, I'm going to have to go. So I went to the window and said, hello, and she said, oh, I'm from, she said who she was. She said, I'm a volunteer from on behalf of DDC, and she said all about it. I said, is there any chance like you could come back some other time? She said, well, you haven't signed it. I said, okay, I'll be down in a second. And I was literally in my night stuff, which isn't a pretty sight, I can assure you. Ask Gary. And I went down, and I just said in passing, and I was saying to her about that I tried the texting, and then I said to her, it's very unusual for like people, like followers to go out on a Sunday. I said, and she went, oh, we have to go out and do whatever time we get. So I thought, okay, fair enough, and I went. And then later on the Monday, I had some complaints of the people saying that they'd come around dinner time. It's like, well, it must be the same area that I live in. So is this normal? And I don't think this should happen on a Sunday when a lot of people, it's their day of rest. A lot of people work during the week and on a Saturday, but Sundays is their day of rest, and also around midday when some people have their Sunday dinner around midday. They're with their families, they're resting. I really think that maybe this could change, because I was fine. I mean, like I say, I haven't had any sleep and I wasn't too happy. Didn't show it, obviously, but I really don't think it's appropriate to be going around on people's rest day, especially on a Sunday. So I'm wondering whether this can be changed. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman, I'm happy to come back on that. I think, as I explained in the response to the points raised by Councillor Campbell, what we're doing is trying to mop up the people who haven't responded to either the first letter or the reminder. And canvassers are targeting times when they're expecting to find people at home, which will be evenings and weekends. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, in that case, can I ask you, members, do you accept the 5 recommendations on this?
Correct.
Last one, SG 52/15/02, annual review of the council tax reduction scheme.
Thank you, Chairman. There is a requirement under the Local Government Finance Act 2012 that for each financial year, each billing authority, Daventry District Council is a billing authority, must consider whether to revise its scheme or to replace it with another scheme. The authority must make any revision to the scheme or any replacement scheme no later than the 31st of January in the financial year preceding that for which the revision or replacement scheme is to have effect. The final decision on whether a scheme is changed must be a decision of this Council. The purpose of this report is to undertake the annual review of the Daventry District Council tax reduction scheme. For 2015-2016, Council decided to reduce the support available for working age claimants using 80% of their council tax liability in calculating their reduction of entitlement. In effect, all working age claimants had a minimum charge of 20% of their liability to pay. The decision taken for 2015-16, Council was taken following significant debate in this chamber. For historical background information to the detail on which that decision was taken, and for scene-setting purposes, I would, amongst other documents, refer members to the statutory good papers of the 4th of September 2014. The current CTRS maintains protection for all vulnerable groups by using the Council Tax Benefit Scheme rules for the calculation of entitlement. When considering any revisions to the CTRS for 2016-17, I would ask members to take into account the following. 1. Changes to the housing benefit rules announced in the summer budget. 2. Changes to the welfare benefit cap from 2016-17. 3. the changes of tax credits from April 2016, and finally, the rollout of universal credit. At this point, I would remind members that proposed welfare changes still require confirmation by Parliament. 3 options are being proposed in the papers for members' consideration in respect of 2016-17. No change, removal of the family premium, increase the liability cap. To conclude, as members will now be aware from the document in front of them and my presentation, there are currently considerable unknowns when trying to make a decision on the subject in hand. For this reason, the proposal being put forward is to agree the option of no change. This will allow time for full data for the first year of the current CTRS scheme to become available and allow a detailed review to be undertaken in order to better understand what the impact on increasing the liability cap from 8% to 8.5% to 20% has been. I therefore ask members to agree the recommendation, no changes made to the current council tax reduction scheme, option 1. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second for that? Please. Would you like to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. Last year, as Councillor Morgan said, there was a big debate on this, and we did have to make a decision. I think it just shows as a council that when there's tough decisions to make, we make them, but we only make those decisions when there's a need. This year, it's been reviewed. There's no need to increase, so that decision is on this year.
Any other speakers? In that case, can I ask you to move? Oh, sorry, Councillor Perry.
Just the portfolio holder mentioned that there'd be, after the year end, there'd be a serious review of the year just gone. I just wondered what the time scale would be for that review to be reported back to council.
The answer to that, Chairman, is as soon as we will obviously come back to council as soon as data is available and has been analysed, and it's in a format that council will be able to understand.
Anybody else? In that case, can I ask you to approve the recommendation? Next item is the elected members' independent remuneration panel report from Managing Officer.
Madam Chairman, very simple report. We have some members who are at the end of their term and we're looking to reappoint those members. Those are the members identified in the advice. Just to let you know, we are looking to see if we can freshen up the panel. There were some comments in the past that need would be worth meeting. And we do have 2 people who will interview in due course, so hopefully there'll be some extra members as well. Then of course that will come back to council for confirmation if you're happy. So a very simple report, Chairman, just looking for a proposal in a second.
How proposed, Madam Chairman?
And second one? Councillor
That was the second, Chairman.
Your members agree? Do we have any other business?
Vice Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, close meeting.